Hi, Mark, and hello, everyone. And I just learned so much from that presentation. I wasn't there at the beginning, but it's just remarkable what Noel is doing there at the Christian Brothers School. So I've learnt a great deal. I'd just like to say that I'd like to say hello to all the members online this evening in this Zoom call. Um, I think what's happened since the lockdown last March has been remarkable. I think teachers have been responsible for the biggest ever public infrastructure project, which has been done without billions of government funding, without teachers getting training or development. Like teachers have just learned and trained themselves to work online and to do remote and blended learning. I think it's absolutely remarkable what you have achieved. And I was on Newsnight last night, and I had an on-air. I think what you could call it. What do you call a row in Northern Ireland? Is there a particular word for it? But whatever the word is, I had an on-air row with Michael Wilshaw, who was the chief inspector for England until the advent of our current chief inspector, and he said that remote learning had been very uneven and that some schools have done it really well, but other schools haven't done it well at all. And of course, there will be some unevenness in remote learning. But when you think what has been achieved, when you think about how many pupils have actually engaged in remote and blended learning, and when you think how hard teachers have worked over 60-hour working weeks to ensure that if they're in school, the children of vulnerable children and remote key worker children are being taught in person, and then do the remote learning for the pupils who are learning from home. I think it's been absolutely remarkable. And I think that the amount of nonsense which is said about teachers and the bad reports they get in the press are just wholly undeserved. I think teachers, like healthcare workers, have been heroes during this COVID pandemic. And I think another thing is that parents now absolutely realise that not anybody can be a teacher. It's a really difficult, challenging, professional, expert job, and that parents are delighted that at the prospect, whenever it happens, that their children will be back in school with their teachers. We've just had a meeting with NEU school reps. Tonight, we've had over 3,000 of them online. I've been talking about our education recovery plan, which you can get off the website, which talks about safety. It talks about the sorts of education that we need when children return and what children don't need when they return, many of whom will have gone through very difficult experiences, and quite a lot of whom will not have been able to work from home because they don't have a space to work, they don't have the computers. Noel was talking about that and about broadband access, and their parents may not have been helped them. The last thing they need is to be drilled in catch up. What they need is a broad and balanced curriculum, and attention needs to be paid, significant attention needs to be paid to counselling, to children's well-being, and to supporting them through a broad and balanced curriculum offer so that they can re-engage in school and re-engage with the society of school and start to believe that they can learn and that they can achieve. Because so much has been said about the terrible things that has happened as a result of the pandemic, so much that I think lots of young people are becoming unnecessarily scared that their life chances are blighted forever. And if we're going to think about education recovery, that's not just for this year, that is for a number of years now, particularly at the transition points into school, from primary to secondary, and from secondary either to work or to further education or higher education. But all the way through, there will be children who need and young people who need extra help in order to recover their education prospects. And so that education recovery plan from the NEU is really important. We have also got a recovery hub. It's called at the moment Remote Education Hub. It's on our website, and it gives members expert advice about the pedagogy of remote learning. It's a really, really valuable resource. As we get the schools and colleges returning to full school and full college in-person teaching, then we're going to change that from the remote education hub to the education recovery hub. And that's going to then have advice about how to integrate children, how to support those who feel that they can't learn, how to give them more confidence, how to get more teachers who are English teachers to think about literacy across the curriculum, because there are some children whose literacy levels will have dropped, who will go from primary to secondary and won't have the literary skills to access the whole curriculum. So how do we reinvent that notion of all teachers also being teachers of English, so that they can support children and young people in accessing the curriculum in their subject? And the final piece of guidance that we've introduced, and we've actually published it today, is turning the page on poverty. It's the fact of the matter is 40% of the education gap between poor children and their more affluent peers is set in stone before they start school. That's a remarkable figure. 40% of the education gap is established before they start school. And it's established through poverty, through stress, parental stress, through narrow horizons, through not having enough food to eat, through not having enough clothes, through living in poor and cramped accommodation, through parents working for their poverty because they don't earn enough to support their children, even with, most children in poverty have at least one parent who is working. And how is it that we've got to the stage in the UK when an average class of 30, 9 children will be poor? So it's turning the page on poverty, and it's tackling the biggest cause of educational underachievement, which is too many children living in poverty. So Mark, thank you for inviting me, if only briefly, to your meeting today. I do hope that you'll go on the web and look at those resources. But what I want to say more than anything else is thank you. Thank you for being NEU members, and thank you for all the work that you're doing to support our children and young people in what has been some of the most difficult and most trying and challenging circumstances that I have ever experienced in my working life, and I'm sure in yours too. Thank you for what you're doing.